March 26, 1991. It's local council election day in Daegu, South Korea. The city's enterprises and institutions and primary and secondary schools have a day off as a result. That morning, 5 boys around the age of 10 from the same village travel together to the nearby Wulong Mountains to catch salamanders. Who knows, until evening the kids still haven't come home. Parents are searching to no avail. Immediately reported to the local police station. The police immediately summoned the surrounding villagers to search the mountain. And I got nothing. This bizarre disappearance, it quickly made headlines. Become the focus of national attention. Due to the media mistaking children for salamanders, reporting became catching frogs. Therefore the case came to be known as the disappearance of the frog teenager. Due to public pressure, the Korean government has mobilized 320,000, including the military, carried out a carpet search of Wulong Mountain where the incident occurred. But still no trace of the children could be found. After this, the police have issued another about 200 million missing persons notice and a reward of 42 million won call for clues about the case. At the same time, the parents of 5 missing children have been searched across the country, but these 5 kids just vanished. Never alive, never dead, never dead. During this period, no kidnappers have contacted the parents of the missing children to demand ransom. The case has thus become a heart-wrenching unsolved case. In the blink of an eye, 4 years have passed. As time goes by, the disappearance of the frog teenager has gradually faded from the public eye. Only a few parents of the missing are unwilling, still trying to find the whereabouts of the child. Then a TV producer named Jeong focusing on the case again. Jeong used to be a gold producer for Seoul TV. Later, due to fraud in the program, he was sent to work at Daegu TV station. In order to demonstrate their reality return to Seoul TV, Ginger decided to make a feature film on the disappearance of the frog teenager. But these cases, it has been reported numerous times by major media. Lau Jeong wants to make this show stand out. You have to find a tricky topic selection angle to make this case a hot topic again. Therefore, Lau Jeong checked it out all the case information previously collected by the TV station. Most of this information is public case information. There is also a small number of interview videos that have not been released. The content of the video, basically, it is the speculation of some people about the case. Some people think that the children were killed by US troops stationed in South Korea. Some people doubt they were secretly abducted by North Korean spies. Some even predict it was aliens who caused this disappearance. Among the many respondents, a university teacher's remarks caught the attention of Lau Jeong. This person's surname is Hwang. I'm a psychology professor. According to Professor Hwang's guess, missing frog boy most likely a political conspiracy. On the day of the incident, it happens to be the day of the local council election in Daegu. Professor Hwang suspects someone deliberately kidnapped 5 children and spread the word. Its purpose: I want the police and surrounding residents to participate in finding people. In this way, these people don't have time to vote in elections anymore. Therefore, it will affect the election result. Who knew that the kidnappers were in the process of imprisoning the children? Something unexpected happened. The kidnappers may be worried about the revelation, so he simply killed 5 children to silence them. And not only that, Professor Hwang's heart and locked up an alleged offender. This is one of them, the mother of a missing teenager named Jong Hao. Professor Hwang said this in an interview. Let Lau Jeong be extremely shocked. In order to obtain more relevant information, Lau Jeong then paid a special visit Professor Hwang. Professor Hwang said, frankly, I used relationship SGOT a lot of inside information from the police. It is based on this information. He only discovered many doubts about Jong Hao's parents. First of all, the children in the countryside played outside all day. It's a normal thing. Even though many children don't come home until dark, parents will only think that the children are playful, don't think too much at all. But in the evening on the day of the crime, Jong Hao's mother yelled that her son had an accident, and soon led several other parents of missing children went to the police station and called the police. It seems that he wants to make things worse as soon as possible. Secondly, 2 months after the incident, Jong Hao's mother suddenly received a phone call at home. The voice of a boy calling his mother came from the other end of the phone. The sound is very similar to Jong Hao. After the incident, the police are on all the missing children's landlines. Recording equipment and trackers are installed. The recording device will start automatically as soon as you answer the phone. The tracker requires the person answering the phone to press a switch to track the location of the caller. Jong Hao's mother seemed unusually calm when answering the phone. Just asked faintly, "Are you Jong Hao?" After getting a positive answer, Jong Ma suddenly froze on the spot. 17 seconds of silence. Until the person on the other end of the phone hangs up. She just woke up from her trance. Then he muttered softly that it was the sound of a bell. More suspicious is during the whole process of answering the phone, Jong Ma did not press the switch of the tracker. It's nothing like a mother who is struggling to find her child. It should be there. After listening to Professor Hwang's analysis, old Jiang also felt that Jong Ma was very suspicious. After the two discussed it was decided that Professor Hwang would lead the investigation into the case. Ginger is in charge of assembling a temporary production team, make a documentary of the investigation process. The next morning, Professor Huang and Lao Jiang in the name of an interview came to Zhong Hao's house. For their sudden visit, Zhong Ma seemed very indifferent. He ignored the two of them, just silently washing dishes in the kitchen. Zhong Hao's father is very enthusiastic, lead Professor Huang and old Jiang to the living room. Then he started rummaging around for photos of Zhong Hao when he was a child. I want the two of them to see what their son looked like when he was a child. Just then Zhong Hao's grandmother came out of the room and pointed to the clock father with his back to himself. Xiang Professor Huang and Lao Jiang gesticulated a gesture of wiping his neck. After Father Zhong turned around to find his mother's actions, hastily rushed it back into the room. In subsequent interviews, Professor Huang asked Zhongba 2 questions straight to the point. Why can the first middle mother predict? In the evening of the day of the crime, I realized something happened to the medium. When the second mother answered the phone, why didn't you press the tracker button in time? For the first question, Father Zhong explained that maybe it's the telepathy between mother and child. The afternoon of the day of the incident, Zhong Ma suddenly felt a palpitation at home. Then he started looking around for the whereabouts of the bell. Because the search is getting more and more urgent. Zhong Ma, in the evening I called the police with the other parents of the missing children. As for the second question, the tracker button installed by the police on Zhong's landline, something went wrong. Zhong Ma pressed the button several times. At that time it also failed to start the tracker normally. This explanation for Father Zhong, neither Professor Huang nor Lao Jiang believed it, but the two of them couldn't ask any useful clues. I can only say goodbye and leave. Professor Huang, who suffered from frequent urination before his death, I borrowed the men's toilet in the yard of the Zhong family. Who knows, he just entered the toilet door. Dad Zhong suddenly said, you want to squat on the tuba. Then he went straight to the women's room next to the men's room, easy access to the toilet during the period. Zhongba was still separated by a wall. Asked Professor Huang to take advantage of his social connections. Help the couple find their son who has been missing for 4 years. Medium Professor Huang casually perfunctory after scaring the urine, he walked out of the south side. I didn't expect Zhongba to be convenient at this time. Walked out from next door. No, isn't Zhongba going to squat in the tuba? How could it be over so quickly? Professor Huang, who grows with beans, immediately thought of a possibility that's in Zhong's toilet, hidden secrets. Zhongba just pretended to go to the toilet. I am just worried that the secret will be discovered. So I deliberately find myself talking big to distract yourself. After leaving the Zhong family, Professor Huang told old Jiang about his doubts. Jiang also synced up with him about his new discoveries. It turns out that when Zhongba and Professor Huang went to the toilet, Lao Jiang noticed a corner in the yard of the Zhong family. There is a newly poured concrete floor. Remembering the strange gesture of the medium-sized grandmother wiping her neck, Lao Jiang and Professor Huang agree to guess. Its middle dad and middle mom killed 5 children, including medium. The couple first took the bodies of their children hidden in the toilet cesspool. Finally, the bones were fished out, buried in the yard under the newly poured concrete. After fulfilling the truth, Lao Jiang immediately called the camera team, then asked Zhongba to a restaurant alone. I interviewed him with Professor Huang. In front of the camera, Professor Huang directly identified Zhongba as the real murderer of the 5 children. Zhong Ma is an accomplice, and the body of the victim now buried in the yard of the Zhong family. Dad Zhong heard this, stunned. After slowing down, he slapped Professor Huang hard in the face. For self-evidence innocent, Father Zhong finally agreed to ask Professor Huang to lead people to his yard, search for clues. The next morning, Professor Huang and Lao Jiang used various social connections. Call him to approve the police and media reporters to come together. The villagers around the Zhong family also heard the news and came to join in the fun. For a while, the yard of the Zhong family is surrounded by water. Police use machines first drain the feces from the septic tank. Finally found a classmate at the bottom of the septic tank. But wait until the police are confident after rinsing this classmate clean. I just found out that he is a girl's shoe. The missing 5 teenagers are all boys. Obviously, this children's shoe has nothing to do with the disappearance. Disappointed Professor Huang, then he commanded the police, smashed open the newly poured cement floor in the Zhongjia courtyard. But there are no bones of children below. Just as Professor Huang was sweating in a hurry, I don't know how to end. Zhong Han's grandmother suddenly came out of the house. Professor Huang seems to have grabbed a life-saving straw. Hurry up and grab the old lady. Ask him to repeat yesterday's gesture. Unexpectedly, Grandma Zhong Hao showed an inexplicable expression. Until Professor Huang prompted several times, he just reluctantly wiped his neck. The onlookers saw this situation tell Professor Huang. Grandma Zhong Hao suffered from Alzheimer's disease many years ago. Long before the children disappeared, and he would do all sorts of weird gestures. And that includes wiping the neck. Professor Huang then realized he and old Jiang may have made an oolong. Wrong blame for Zhong Hao's parents. See the onlookers at this time. Zhong Hao's parents not only suffered the pain of losing their child subject to groundless slander and accusations, and they were outraged. Surround Professor Huang, ask him to apologize to father and mother Zhong. But Professor Huang did not pay attention to the demands of the villagers. Instead, he found a gap in the crowd, fleeing the scene in a hurry. After this farce, Lao Jiangsung, the police officer in charge of investigating the case, I learned from my mouth. After the incident, Zhong Hao's mother has received a lot of prank calls, some schadenfreude. often pretending to be the missing Zhong Hao to call the Zhong family. Poor Zhong Mate, pain of losing a child and the double whammy of mischief. The mind is often in a state of trance and numbness. So he is answering the voice of Zhong Hao calling for mother. When calling, the tone is unusually calm. In addition, on the day of the incident, although Daegu City is all on vacation, but Zhong Ba and his colleagues have been working overtime in the factory, rushing to deliver a batch of new orders. That is to say, Zhong Ba has no time to commit crimes at all. And when Professor Huang and Lao Jiang first visited the Zhong family, the reason why Father Zhong went to the toilet with Professor Huang, really creating conversation opportunities. Please, Professor Huang, can you work harder, help me find my son? I didn't expect it, Professor Huang, who only wants to make a name for himself. I am actually obsessed with thinking Father Zhong and Mother Zhong would kill their own son. Due to this farce created by Professor Huang and Lao Jiang make a lot of noise. The college where Professor Huang works gives birth to the school directly fired Professor Huang. Jiang also submitted his resignation to Daegu TV, returned to Seoul and took a regular clerical job. The case of the missing frog boy is once again over. Until 2002, 6 years later, the case suddenly made new progress. In the summer and autumn of this year, Wulong Mountain, where the crime took place, encountered a rare heavy rainfall. There was a landslide. After the rain, nearby villagers at the site of the landslide, a pile of children's bones was found. Through the clothes and other information on the bones, the police quickly confirmed these skeletons. It's from 11 years ago, the mysterious disappearance of 5 frog teenagers. At this time, CMB had already died of cancer a few years ago. Parents of CMB and several other children, after hearing the news and arriving at the scene, they were all crying. For a while, this unsolved case that has been silent for many years, it has once again become the focus of attention of the Korean people. The police released their latest findings shortly after. They think 5 teenagers lost their way while hunting salamanders trapped in the mountains. And the temperature in Wulong Mountain at night is extremely low. All 5 children eventually froze to death in the mountains. A large army. The reason why the police and villagers did not find this group of children, mainly because of the vast area of Wulong Mountain. The terrain is particularly complex. 5 children died after freezing to death. The remains were soon buried by fallen leaves. Therefore, it was not discovered by the later search and rescue personnel. The conclusion of the police investigation: obviously, it's just a trick to calm public opinion and fool the people. Not only were the parents of the deceased unable to accept, even Jiang, who is an outsider, I also find the police's claims unconvincing. Now Lao Jiang is married and has children. Shixia has a lovely daughter, Jiang Ni. After becoming a father, she finally despaired of her parents' empathy for the farce he and Professor Huang made back then. Ginger has always felt guilty. So over the years he has been silently watching the trend of the missing frog boy case. I hope to find out the truth one day. Make up for the mistakes you made back then. To this end, Lao Jiang passed the relationship fine the medical examiner responsible for examining the bones to understand the situation. According to the medical examiner, 5 children did not freeze to death by hypothermia. He was brutally murdered. On their skulls there are multiple holes for sharp energy strikes. A weapon like a chisel. Children's place of death was indeed on Wulong Mountain. After the murderer kills, no bodies have been moved over long distances. And the reason is very simple. When the bones were found, all 5 children were tied up in their own clothes. If the murderer moved the body from a distance, there is a high probability that it will cause the dislocation of the spine of the deceased. But the spines of 5 children, there has been no dislocation. Back then, the police organized a large-scale search of mountains. The reason why the body was not found, probably because the murderer took 5 bodies buried deep in the ground and pressed a huge stone in the burial position. Plus the burial of soil and fallen leaves makes the police's mountain search in vain. In addition, the forensic doctor also noticed that the way the murderer tied the corpse was special. It doesn't look like a binding method commonly used by ordinary people. Lao Jiang will provide these clues from the forensic doctor record it all. Then he went back to Officer Park, who was in charge of the case, verify the situation. Officer Park admitted the police are trying to calm public opinion. He lied to the public that 5 children were frozen to death by hypothermia because the incident took too long. The police can't find any clues to solve the case at present. But Officer Park does have a suspect in mind. This person's name is Zhu Huan, is a fishing enthusiast in Seoul. Although not a native of Daegu, but Zhu Huan often drives go fishing in a wild lake on Wulong Mountain. Therefore, he is very familiar with the terrain of the mountain. Professor Lao Jiang and Professor Huang led the team dig for lions at Zhong Hao's house that day. Officer Park accidentally noticed Zhu Huan park the car at the entrance of the village, sneakily peeking at Zhong Hao's yard. Officer Park was just about to come forward and question Zhu Huan, hurriedly drove out of the village entrance. Although the police later took Zhu Huan back to the police station for interrogation. But no conclusive evidence has been found to prove that Zhu Huan committed the crime. At the request of Lao Jiang, Officer Park gave him a personal portrait of Zhu Huan. Lao Jiang immediately looked for the address. He drove to Zhu Huan's place. Zhu Huan is not at home at this time, didn't lock the door. Lao Jiang bravely slipped into the house and searched for it. And soon discovered Zhu Huan's way of binding books, almost exactly the same way the killer tied the corpse. Shocked, Lao Jiang hurried back to his car waiting for Zhu Huan to come back. He wants to see for himself what kind of person is this suspect. Who knows, until night falls Zhu Huan didn't go home either. And Lao Jiang has been tired from investigating the case in the past 2 days, unknowingly fell asleep in the car. Just at this moment Zhu Huan returned home from get off work and he knew right away that the rope that bound the book was tampered with. After realizing that someone had broken into the house, Zhu Huan hurriedly came outside to check. Soon found Ginger sleeping in the car and a portrait of myself in the passenger seat of the car. However, Zhu Huan did not alarm Lao Jiang. Just quietly I took a picture of Lao Jiang's license plate number with my mobile phone. After Lao Jiang woke up from the car the next morning, Zhu Huan has long since disappeared. Lao Jiang had to decide to go home first. The result is halfway he suddenly received a call from his wife. The other party claims their daughter, Jenny, who is in elementary school, just disappeared mysteriously from school. Jiang hurried to the school after hearing the news, working with his wife to locate his daughter. Fortunately, the couple were soon near the school, found the injured Jenny. According to Jiang Ni's recollection, she broke her knee on the swing. Was led to a nearby pharmacy by a kind uncle passing by, put some medicine on the wound. After rubbing the medicine, kind uncle also uses his own handkerchief, put a simple bandage on his wound. Lao Jiang saw his daughter tied to his knees. Handkerchief suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Because of the way the handkerchief bandages the wound. The same way the murderer tied the corpse. Lao Jiang immediately realized that the murderer was warning him. In anger he drove to Zhu Huan's residence again. The result is halfway through, just past Zhu Huan driving the truck. Old Jiang immediately turned around and chased after him. The two arrived at a slaughterhouse one after the other. After getting off the bus, Lao Jiang did not immediately confront Zhu Huan. Instead, I had a few words with the owner of the slaughterhouse first. According to the factory owner, Zhu Huan is a butcher here, quirky personality. Other butchers now slaughter cattle the groundbreaking way. Crested ibis are the only ones still using the traditional method of slaughtering cows. The so-called hanging bull method, it's the use of hammers and chisels to violently chisel through the head of a cow. Because the process is very cruel, slaughterhouses have long since abandoned this method of slaughtering cattle. Then the ginger was on the crested ibis desk. I saw a lot of dense holes. It is said that these are crested ibis practicing drooping traces left behind. Old Jiang vaguely felt these holes in the desk very similar to the gouges on the skulls of the 5 victims. Under the guidance of the master, Lao Jiang finally came to the slaughter workshop. I saw a crested ibis preparing to slaughter a cow. After seeing Lao Jiang walk into the workshop, the crested ibis raised the hammer in your left hand defiantly. Then hit hard on the chisel against the bull's head. Bright red cow blood splattered on the crested ibis face. Makes him look like a bloodthirsty demon. At this time, Lao Jiang has already determined Zhu Huan is the murderer who tortured and murdered 5 teenagers, and the other party's motive for murder. I'm afraid it's killing from the bottom of my heart. The fishing net is here. Lao Jiang pounced forward angrily and scuffled with Zhu Huan. He kept cursing each other's evil deeds. As a result, he was knocked to the ground by the strong Zhu Huan. Zhu Huan, after knocking down Lao Jiang, I asked him coldly, and you said I was the murderer. Do you have any evidence? Lao Jiang fell into an ice cave when he heard this, at a loss. End of story. Lao Jiang came to Zhong Hao's house again for what I did back then. Sincerely apologized to Zhong Ma. Zhong Ma also confessed to Jiang at this time. Back then, I received that Zhong Hao's voice calling my mother when calling. She immediately decided the person on the other end of the phone, it's not his son Zhong Hao at all. But she still lied to the police. That's Zhong Hao's voice. That's because, after 2 months of fruitless searching, the police has decided to end the search and rescue work. CMB is just in this way trying to convince the police that the children are still alive, so as to continue the search and rescue work at that time. It's just that he never expected. As early as the day of the crime, all 5 children have been murdered. This issue story, it was released in 2011. Korean crime mystery film Kids. The film is based on a true story, the disappearance of a frog teenager, one of the 3 unsolved cases in South Korea. The case has not yet been solved. The murderer has not only been at large for many years and it could still be alive. Due to the fact that as of March 25, 2006, the 15-year statute of limitations in this case has expired, the Korean police, therefore the investigation of the case has long been suspended. Except for the missing frog boy. 2 other unsolved cases in South Korea, respectively the Hwaching serial murder case and the abduction of Lee Jong-ho. These 2 cases, it was turned into a movie called Memories of Murder and That Guy's Voice.